Liverpool already have one hand touching that Premier League title. Yes, I am increasingly getting the feeling that they are going to win it after all. Anyways, hello everyone and welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. I hope you're having a wonderful weekend. Welcome back from that thrilling Saturday action that we did witness. Some high scoring games there, including Nottingham Forest putting a week of goals past Brighton and Hove Albion. I do not remember the last time Brighton and Hove Albion were that humiliated with such a beating, but it was handed to them courtesy of Nottingham Forest, a team for which we were wondering last weekend how they did concede 5 goals against AFC Bournemouth, and yet they did respond perfectly, if not in equal measure, on the other side. Anyway, it was a thrilling weekend of action where we did witness a couple of very, very good results. Teams that we did not expect to win, possibly going ahead to win, but brilliant. Things did kick off at the City Ground Stadium where Nottingham Forest put it up against Brighton and Hove Albion by 7 goals to 0. Chris Wood managing the hat-trick in that one to extend his personal tally to 17 goals, tying up with Newcastle's Alexander Isak, who also has 17 goals. A table that is being led by Liverpool's Mohamed Salah, who has 21 goals to his name, followed by Manchester City's Erling Haaland. The same Mo Salah, who is leading the Premier League assist table with 13 assists. That's a combined goal contribution of 34 in the Premier League. Isn't Mo Salah just incredible? I mean, you run out of superlatives to put to his name. But anyway, Chris Wood, a hat-trick for him on the day. Lewis Dunk, a very bad day in office, did concede or did score an own goal that gave Nottingham Forest the lead. Morgan Gibbs-White on target in there. I mean, quite very brilliant. And then when you thought it was all done and dusted, they just further gave it away and conceded 2 more because they did concede a penalty. From some of the goals they did concede were quite lazy, to be honest. Brighton were not themselves on the day. Now, for example, that Jota Silva goal that they do concede at the end, and that of Nico Williams. Again, lapses in defenses, the goalkeeper not being himself and, playing the ball literally in no man's land to see his side concede on the day. But anyway, that was a very decent result. That extended Nottingham Forest's tally to 47 points, equivalent to that of Arsenal, who are second place on the Premier League table with a game to spare for the Gunners, which they do play today, by the way, when they take on Manchester City at the Emirates Stadium. Anyway, in the other result, Liverpool got their first hand on the Premier League table following that 2-0 victory over AFC Bournemouth. Mo Salah at the end of the scoring of that press that guided Liverpool to that victory. Now, for me, the game, they did win the game on a contentious decision that gave them their first goal. That was a penalty, which was converted by Mo Salah. The action leading to it being having Cody Gakpo involved there. Now, I certainly do not understand, or perhaps may not understand now or very soon, why the referee decided to give that as a penalty, and even VAR upon review did, agree with the referee, the on-field referee's decision. Why? From the clips I've watched, and this is more just one. It may have not exhausted all the angles for which they best own their judgment to make that decision. That is in respect to VAR in terms of guiding the match official. A defender is running back, no intent to make contact with Cody Gakpo. There's an accidental touch as a result of two players running at almost a similar pace, one slightly, one ahead of the other. And then, contact is made by Cody Gakpo on the Bournemouth defenders or players' calf, the inside of the calf, as an accidental touch as it may come. And then you give that as a penalty. Should he have run with a 10-meter distance gap between them so that no contact is made? For me, it has always begged the question on some challenges. forget this particular one that does lead to the penalty. Some contact in football as a sport is unavoidable. We do agree that some contact is forbidden. For example, the dangerous tackles that could land you, get you a red card, a yellow card on a given day. But we must acknowledge that we cannot play football in isolation of opposing players. That at the end of the day, players will come in contact. That's why when we go for set pieces like corners, we have, players sort of tagging and each other, grabbing and all that kind of thing. They're in each other's faces. They're trying to crowd the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper is trying to push them away to create himself a bit of space so that when that ball comes in flight, he has a bit of room to run into and perhaps punch that ball or even gather that ball. So contact in itself in football is unavoidable. We cannot stay away from it. Now, with that said, we go back to that particular incident. The Bournemouth player has no intention whatsoever to make a tackle at that point and does not attempt to make one. In fact, at the end of the day, when Cody Gakpo trips over, he clears that ball cleanly. Now, again, maybe those that have officiated the game or those perhaps that are more informed than I am may give us a different view. And if you do have one yourself, do leave it down in the comment section and we'll engage on it. But in that particular incident, it's an accidental touch. And let's not forget, we did have a similar incident in a game last season between Manchester United and Arsenal. It was involving, I think, Kai Havertz and Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Again, Kai Havertz is running towards goal. Aaron Wan-Bissaka is running in the same direction to try and, stop Kai Havertz from scoring. In there, he attempts to make a tackle, but realizes he may come a little late. So he sort of withdraws in his first attempt. But as he continues running, Kai Havertz somehow gets that accidental touch or contact with Aaron Wan-Bissaka and trips in the box, which is similar to what happened with Cody Gakpo. Then that was ruled as not a penalty. Now, according to the tapes released by the VAR officials or the pitch mod, clearly the officials were attempting to explain that there was no intentional contact initiated by Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and therefore that should not be given as a penalty. Well and good. Arsenal fans may have felt aggrieved then, or even still do now, but I felt it was the correct decision to make. The reason as to why such a decision becomes contentious is when you give it one time and on another occasion, you don't give it as a penalty. So that creates inconsistencies in the officiation of the game. Again, it takes us backward. Now, in this particular case, it may involve different officials in different games, but it begs the question, what lessons do referees learn from their actions after every weekend? Because for me, I get the feeling that there is always something to learn from every weekend, because there's never been a weekend of football where you did not have a controversial decision made in the Premier League. Not that I recall. So anyway, if that particular incident from last season between Arsenal and Manchester United taught the referees anything, and pitch mod in general, then that should have informed the decision for yesterday. Did they agree that last season it should have been a penalty for Arsenal against Manchester United, Kai Havertz versus Aaron Wan-Bissaka, that it was a mistake not to give that penalty? Personally, I do not think it was a penalty because it's an accidental touch. Again, let's rewind things a little further back. You remember that David Luiz red card versus Wolverhampton Wanderers? I think it was against Raul Jimenez. Again, two players running in the same direction, one ahead of the other. David Luiz running back to try and defend against Raul Jimenez. Now, in the process of running back, Raul Jimenez's heels clip David Luiz's knee. David Luiz, who is running at the back of him. Again, another accidental touch. And then guess what happened? Whistle is blown. It's a penalty. It's a red card for David Luiz. So, clearly, whereas one could argue heaven and earth that is a separate incident and all together, and maybe it was a clear and obvious penalty. Again, I would argue otherwise. Why? Because it's an accidental touch between two players running. First of all, I couldn't blame it on Raul Jimenez because he had no vision or awareness whatsoever how close a distance or a gap David Ruiz had closed on him before his heel goes on to clip against David Ruiz's knee, and it's given as a red card and a penalty. Maybe it would have been given as a penalty on one end, but then double jeopardy, red card and a penalty. I found that decision in itself so much wanting. So again, we come back to yesterday's decision. Accidental contact in leading with two players. We've all agreed that contact in itself cannot be avoided because players cannot play in isolation. We're not playing lawn tennis. We're not playing darts. We're not playing cards here. We're not playing whichever sport. We're not playing badminton. So it is football in its nature is a contact sport. Some contact is forbidden, and we do agree on that. But then there is something as much as accidental contact, which was the incident in this particular game. But it was awarded a penalty. Should we argue that it's one rules for another team and different rules for other teams? I do not want to go down that rabbit hole because it doesn't lead us anywhere. But sometimes it does come off that way. So again, referees ought to orient themselves on reviews in regards to decisions that are made, because it wouldn't surprise us if we do come next weekend or even this particular Sunday for the games that are going to be played and we have a similar incident in a different game and it's not given as a penalty. So, but anyways, we'll leave that at that. Do let me know what your arguments are, what your opinions are about those particular things in the game. For me, for those of you that did watch interview with Kasuku once again, he did speak about the English game and football in general becoming too mechanical, being a lot very much engineered in one way or the other. And clearly, this is one of those where at the time when I thought VR would have come in to say this is an accidental touch, there's no intention by the player to make contact at that stage of the duel whatsoever. So, but they gave it anyway. So it is what it is. And Liverpool went on to win that game by 2-0. And that extended their lead at the table by 9 points against a second-place Arsenal, who do play Man City, like I did mention earlier. Anyway, in the other result was Everton beating up against Leicester City by 4-0. Abdoulaye Diakore opening the scoring in that particular one, and then the striker Beto putting scoring a brace in that particular game. Now, I know David Moyes said he is no magician when he was taking on the reins at Everton for his second spell after 4,266 days since he had left the Goodson Park. But clearly, he has conjured some magic to get the Toffees fired. In his first game, he did suffer a defeat against Aston Villa by 1-0. I think that goal was scored by Oli Watkins in the 51st minute of the game. But then in the subsequent game, he went on to beat up against Tottenham Hotspurs by 3-2. And then the following game, he beat up against Brighton and Hove Albion by 1-0. And yesterday, put Leicester to the sword with that 4-0 victory. 8 goals scored in a total of 4 games that is being charged, but those 8 goals have come in the last 3 games. Now, 8 goals is more than half of the number of goals they had scored in 20 Premier League games under their previous manager in Shondage. We all remember that they had been struggling to score goals. Up until that point, when they lost to Aston Villa, I think they had failed to score in about 11 Premier League goals that failed to score. So, things weren't looking pretty. Shondage overly defensive, and while we say that they were failing to score, it may surprise you that on the other side, Jordan Pickford, I think he's second place on number of clean sheets kept. He has as many as 9. I think ahead of him is Matt Seals of Nottingham Forest, who has 10 clean sheets. So clearly, things were working on the other end of the aisle for Jordan Pickford. But that notwithstanding, I think David Moyes is getting things right at Goodson Park. He may not be a magician, but he is conjuring some magic here. And they are now 9 points clear of the relegation zone because they do sit 15th on the Premier League table and with a game to spare in comparison to the other to four of the teams that occupy the bottom four of the Premier League. That game will be played, I think, on 12th of February, contrary to what I had mentioned last week. That game in hand against Liverpool in the Merseyside derby. So clearly, they are building themselves some bit of momentum in the lead up to that particular game. But we are waiting to see what we will make of that. In the other surprising result, Ipswich did lose to Southampton by 2-1. Southampton winning their second game of the season. I think they now have 9 points. So it's been 2 wins and 3 draws to give them a tally of 9 points. I do not think it will save them from relegation. I do not think it gives them any hope whatsoever. But we can never say never because mathematically, given the number of games that are left to spare, that's about what? About 12 games. So if they go on to win 12 games, 3 points apiece, how many points are those? That's about 30, yes, 36. Yes, 36 plus 9, it would save them from relegation. But it's an idea, far-fetched. Mathematically, it's possible. But given who Southampton are, I wouldn't hang on any hopes whatsoever. So they did lose that one. Then Fulham went ahead to beat up against Newcastle by 2-1 at St. James's Park. At St. James's Park. Again, another brilliant game there. I didn't watch this particular one, but I know Jacob Murphy was on target for Newcastle, while Raul Jimenez and Rodrigo Moyes were on target for Fulham there. So another very decent result. But then, in the late kickoff of the day, we did witness Wolverhampton Wanderers beat up against Aston Villa by 2-0. Vita Pereira there celebrating so passionately at the blow of the final whistle there because that win meant so much to them. They did hang on to a 1-0 lead for quite a long spell of the game, but Matthias Cunha, a targeted man who has been quoted by clubs like Arsenal, Manchester United, and Nottingham Forest, did conjure something out to settle the date on the day because it was 2-0 for Wolverhampton Wanderers. By the way, Matthias Cunha has since agreed with the club to sign a 4.5-year contract extension at Wolverhampton Wanderers amidst all that interest. Now, it is reported that in that contract, there is a release clause for the Brazilian international that will go into effect in June 2025, which is this year. That means effectively the summer. What basically he did was commit his future for this particular season to the club and says, if there are any suitors that do come around and are of interest to me, this should be my release clause. Please agree to let me go. I do not know what the release clause is particularly, but it should be anywhere above 50 million pounds from what I gather, because we all remember last summer Pedro Neto leaving for Chelsea in a deal that was north of 60 million euros. But anyways, that was that from their very decent result for Victor Pereira as Wolverhampton Wanderers tried to fight their way out of the relegation zone because they are now 17th on the Premier League table with 19 points. They still have a chance to save themselves, but just as much as Leicester and Ipswich Town do have in that running. Tottenham Hotspurs linger there below Everton in 16th place. Nobody, not even I, would have assumed that Tottenham Hotspurs would be down further this table at this stage of the Premier League, but it is what it is. And guess what? They are in action today at the GTEC Stadium against Brentford, London derby. Very difficult game. Brentford do have I think Brandon Buemo and Juan Visa, one having a tally of 13 goals and the other 11. Very lethal strikers there. Tottenham will have to be worried of going into this particular game. A game that I think Tottenham could get beat. I wouldn't really be surprised because Brentford can be very good on a given day. At the same time, Manchester United will be up against Crystal Palace. still 5 p.m. East African time, while Arsenal at 7:30 p.m. will entertain Manchester City. And of course, that Monday night football that will engage on a little further between Chelsea and West Ham United. Remember, West Ham are under the charges of a former Chelsea manager in Graham Potter. So we'll wait to see how all that transpires. Anyways, do let me know what your thoughts are on those particular results or the incidents from the weekend. Disappointingly, Real Madrid lost to Espanyol by a goal to nil last night. Very painfully, they did concede that goal very late in the game, I think in the 84th minute or something. Very painful there. But do let me know what your thoughts are on those particular things, moments, and I'll see you next time. Stay blessed and have a wonderful rest of the day.